Hello all of you wonderful beings out there, and welcome to the stream. I am Razim, and this is DevTales, where we are going to be working on our SCAR system, or Stories and Creatures in Alternate Realities. This is a system that is an open playtest that you guys can go check out on our Discord or over at itch.io now. And, yeah, go check it out. Let us know what you think.
And Monobel, I already got that game. I believe I got that game with like 90% off, too, so... And yes, it is a freaking fantastic game as well. Ah...
So, I suppose while we are waiting for everybody to get in and gather up and stuff, I know Seda should be coming. I don't think that Ki or Raharu will be here, but...
No, I don't think he's going to be here. Might have actually already gone to bed.
Yeah, it's pretty late for Raharu.
Well, we're talking about Ki, but Raharu is still up.
Okay.
He just had other plans tonight.
Gotcha.
But while we're starting here, I'm going to go ahead and update the highlights for this update.
Good night, Monobel.
Man.
So even though there's only the two of us, what do you think about ensuring... I posted the possibility of making it so fresh characters cannot pick up primeval features.
That's a hard one to consider, because you basically have to XP dump to get into it, right?
I mean, it's 25 XP to start one of them.
Think fast, Sir Irabane, because the Lord Beerus is smooching you.
Oh no. I thought Mallow was going to bed. I'd be fine with it not being available at character creation.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, like... Oh, so I can add new sets on this. Neat. We'll go with the rooftop one today. You know, companions are a slight problem with that. We can allow some of them to be exceptions to that, but to get a companion in the first place, you need storyteller approval anyways.
There we go.
exceptions can always be had with storyteller approval.
Exactly. But I feel like the primeval features are a little more complex than we want at character creation for a new player. And obviously, as we said, exceptions can be made. So the storyteller can always allow that.
Anyways, we need the rest of the devs here to really fully discuss it. It's a for now thing.
Yeah.
Because I have my hesitations with saying not available at character creation, but at the same time, it's like,
This from a new guy perspective, just hearing the primeval feature and all that, it's like, I get what you're saying, but I don't understand how I would use that as a new player, because it's still very confusing for me to understand all that.
who did we just gain? Ah, Raijin.
Raijin,
Raijin.
who has basically become a dev as well.
Oh no, the kitchen.
It's okay, I'm still the lead.
That makes me feel less safe, Sim. You like fire too much.
And lightning, don't forget that.
I mean, I'll try to give my input here and there.
But I don't know what you're talking about with initiative economy there, Shadow Wolf.
No.
Just saying companions does not clarify your point in the slightest, Shadow Wolf. I think they can use their beginning XP for a primeval feature, but it won't be available as one of their starting moves, or one of the free feats. Okay, Shadow Wolf, but what does that have to do with the price of rice in China?
Wait, what?
As in, what does that
Exact-
have to do with the current conversation at hand?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, I hate to break this to you, Shadow Wolf. There's a lot of GMs out there that don't allow companions or leadership feats or things like that to even begin with because of that very specific thing. I actually don't allow the leadership feat anymore after trying it once and finding out how quickly it makes one character just have all the time.
I do like to have companions myself, and so I'm happy to include them, but we're already planning to add companions, so I have no idea what you're on about there, Shadow Wolf. Also, Vari, want to come join Voice? You're welcome to.
Vari, come join Voice.
Join us.
We never brought up companions, I don't think.
No, we have.
Did we? Okay.
It was like a while ago, though.
Yeah, I believe the idea was for it to be a primeval feature.
Yeah, we're turning it into a primeval feature, but we did have a feat chain for him.
It'd probably work better as a primeval feature to a certain degree.
What is unfortunate?
Oh, he wanted to take leadership. Yeah. We'll have to discuss it off cam. Leadership gets hard to GM for when it comes to Pathfinder, because somebody can literally have an army.
Oh, Waharu.
Iraharu.
I'm here.
Ah, the Secrobat has arrived.
Yes.
And Seda will be here in 5.
Yeah.
Right. Vari, join Voice. It can be, because oftentimes the GM has to play the cohort, or the player has to play the cohort, but then you can, if you do it right, you can have an army of like 100 people, and that's a lot.
Is that a Plotso Takiakan that the Raijin is wearing?
Yes.
Float,
Well,
float.
You see, we all float down here.
What's wrong, boss? You seem a little nervous.
No, everything's okay. Everything's okay.
Is everything okay, boss?
Yes, yes it is. Oh, God, no, wait, no! Not
gosh.
you too, Arrow.
Now we know who the real boss around here is.
That'll be Master.
For you, yes.
I mean, if you don't want me as a floatzel, I can leave.
No, 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 no. I like you being a float soul, Raijin. I do. I really do.
Adorable.
Somebody apparently made a suggestion to delete one of the boxes. We are not doing that.
Why is
What?
Justin to beat? Why delete a box? Did they even say why?
Yeah.
No, they
Which-
can't say why on it. It was probably just a misclick. We get so many quote-unquote suggestions that are, oh, somebody accidentally typed something.
Oh.
It is the one downside.
I remember like the
Google
first time I
Docs.
looked through the document, I accidentally typed something and then deleted it, and it had a suggestion for deleting the thing that I typed, and I was like, God.
Oof, see ya, Dunbrine.
Oof.
Bye,
Aw.
Dunbrine.
Bye, Dunbrine. Be safe
Bye,
at
Dunbrine.
work.
Oh, Ermagerd, it's a Serta.
Yay! Hey, Seda.
Hello.
It's a Serta.
Pokeball, go!
Wait. Is it a moonball?
Moonball, go!
Okay, you may proceed. How are
Yeah.
you beans doing this evening?
Oh, I'm
I'm fine.
alright. How are you?
I am not doing too bad.
Your mic does sound a little odd.
I am on my phone at the moment because I am packing.
Oh, that's
Oh.
fair.
So what is the point of discussion today?
Well, the first thing that we went over today was removing primeval feats from the free beginning feats.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they are a little too complicated to have for a new player, but we are going to allow people to pick them up with the starting 60 XP with storyteller approval.
I think that's very fair.
Who just joined? Idavari.
Hi.
Hi, Vari.
Hi, Barry.
Hi, boss.
Alright, have you guys had an opportunity to look over the feats that I have ported over and adjusted? I don't think so, but...
I only read up to Raijan's post.
Oh, I was meaning on the main dock.
Only in brief, I haven't had time to take a deep dive. I guess I could start that now.
Are you talking about the general feats?
More specifically, the affinity ones.
Affinity feats. Okie dokie. I have briefly because I have used them.
Okay.
Particularly because I did take up the Tremor Sense and the Just a Flesh Room and Shed the Rust. Is there a particular place you want to begin? Or just like...
It was just a general, hey, did you guys look at that? Any issues with those? I did some balancing adjustments for a lot of them, so as well as standardization.
Mm-hmm.
But I could go and work on the update stuff later. I know one point of discussion, which it sucks that Tal isn't here, but he brought up that Soul is
Too powerful?
exceedingly powerful. Because feats currently scale off of Soul. As well as, you know, you got all of your soul saves and all of that stuff. You got soul boost, which we were discussing switching away from it being a soul boost and instead just calling it boost dice, which you can basically just choose which of your attributes you're using with it instead of it being tied only to soul.
I believe Raijin posted the thing that Tal had come up with, because it wasn't noted.
Well, the three of us had discussed it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Body dice
It was
for
a lengthy
rerolling-
discussion, but yeah.
Body dice for rerolling 3 dead dice. Mind dice for imposing an opponent to reroll a 10. dice pool sum primary attribute divided by 3 can only choose 1 boost dice per section/rest.
I'm not fond of that. I'm good with
Neither am
people
I.
being able to, on the fly choose.
What are dead dice?
That
I'm
would
assuming-
be stuff by
2
default,
through 5 on a standard difficulty.
2 through 6.
Oh yeah, 2 through 6.
Dice
Results that do nothing.
Yeah. No subtraction, no bonus. Just they are there.
Would we still be keeping the soul reroll the 1 dice
Yes.
thing in this? Okay.
I think if you change that, a lot of people are gonna be upset about that.
Well, if you removed it, we're not removing it. We're adding more options, it sounds like.
Ah, okay.
The object is, instead of just having soul dice where you reroll 1 dice, there's the rerolling 3 dead dice or forcing an opponent to or reroll something. RNG.
Which
manipulation.
so the body dice. Taldarius did the formal EV calculations, if I remember correctly. The soul dice has an EV of 1.4 repeating. Body dice has an EV of 1.3 repeating at standard difficulty. But if you have easier difficulty, it can scale all the way up to 2. And the mind dice, it's kind of weird because it's an entirely different use case. It's technically lower EV, but also you can use it a bit more impactfully against opponents, I guess. So,
Yeah, technically the mind dice one there is by math strongest out of the 3. But it's got limited use because it has to be against an opponent. You have to be in a combat or opposed roll or such, so it doesn't necessarily really matter that much.
You have to be a blue player.
I don't know the reference, but sure.
MTG control decks were always blue. It's a Magic joke, Magic the Gathering joke.
But yeah, you guys.
I want to make a Scar build where I just mill the opponent's dices.
Introducing a new mechanic where ones actually remove it from the dice pool and force you to re-roll another dice. Just all ones, you're now rolling 1 dice.
That's gross.
Sorry, I'm going to make you discard your final dice here, and I'm going to draw a dice. You lose.
But yeah, any opposition to that? To those proposals?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, each of these dice pool would have their own separate, I guess, like pool. Like, if let's just say I have, they would fall under
You
the same
have
kind of category.
one pool.
But 3 options.
You have
to
one
use.
pool of boost dice, and that's your primary attributes added together divided by 3. And within that pool, you can choose to use either a body dice, mind dice, or a soul dice at any point. Is what Zim is thinking.
Is there any reason to call them body, mind, soul dice?
Based on the effect.
That is, yeah. It would basically be I'm using a soul boost to just signify you're re-rolling a 1. or I'm using a body boost to reroll 3 dead dice, etc., etc.
They're just key phrases.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
One-
because like my initial interpretation of that was based off of the original wording of like the soul dice, that there would be a separate pool there based off of like your body skill, etc. But I see where you're going at now. And
Yeah, a key point is we're trying not to add more pools or counters to keep track of. So it's still the same counter that you're using for soul dice. It's just expanded to allow body and mind to be useful
part of
because
that.
it's the sum instead of just soul.
Yeah.
yeah.
I am a little torn on things. Because it's like... Also, hey there, Dragon King. I'm doing alright. How are you? Because it's kind of like... Say you've got 5 body, 5 mind, and only 1 soul. Technically, with this system, you could use all of your boost dice for soul boost. And I'm not certain if that's how we want to go about that. But at the same time, I also don't want to add another thing to keep track of. We've already got boost dice, period. We've got the... I think we'll keep it just that generalized idea where even if you have only 1 soul, you can still use all of your boost dice for soul boost.
There's no reason to have arbitrary limits like that, really.
Yeah. Especially since the whole reason that we're adding these other options in is to kind of move away from soul being quite as powerful and mandatory.
That and we don't want to make things too complex.
But yeah.
As much as some of us love the grind.
Yeah. I am doing my best to keep this somewhere between D&D 5th edition simplicity and Pathfinder's complexity. Enough complexity to keep those that like the complex stuff happy, but not so much that those that definitely get turned off by Pathfinder find it like, oh god, what am I even looking at? But yeah. Any opposition to these?
I do have one thought that just came to me. The body dice, it might feel a little bit too similar to willpower in practice, but I think it is still distinct enough. Just kind of a thought.
I definitely think it is distinct enough, and honestly, I think it would feel better because sometimes you do get that. You can get that, you've got a couple of 10s in there, but the rest of your roll is garbage. Well, then you can
Just
use
oops,
body
all
to-
4s.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a couple of 10s, but the rest are all 4s. At least you can do something with those 4s.
Yeah.
Whereas
concern
willpower
that
is
we're
the
rolling-
entire thing gets re-rolled.
Yeah, I guess my only worry is that 3 dice seems like a lot of dice. But you said Taldarius already did the math, so...
I thought it felt like too much as well, but yeah, Tao did the math on that and said that he was the one that put forward 3, so... Okay.
Yeah,
I'll have him send
at
me the math
standard
later so I can
difficulty,
cross-check.
it is. Yeah. He says at standard difficulty, it's actually less EV than soul dice. But when you have an easier difficulty on the roll, it's more rewarding, which that creates something interesting compared to soul. But it's also pretty thematically fits body dice because you're just kind of having the concept of if you're already pushing through pretty well, you can push even harder.
Yeah,
But
I still
if
want to
you're
see
struggling, you're not going to get much distance.
I just want to see his maths that way. I can sit there and rerun the same numbers and see if I
I
agree. But
I
that's
fully
later stuff.
expect to use this and then get 3 extra ones.
It's entirely possible.
I mean, maybe we should keep these away from the bui.
I can't. It's not mine. The dice hates me. The dice just hates me. Okay.
Alright. Just
I
in the
do
interest
have-
of time, I want to keep things a little more on track. What's up, Seda?
I do have some longer thoughts. I'm sitting down in about 30 seconds with my cup of tea, but I just had a thought borrowing from the Dark Heresy system. Because they have the concept of the fate points that you could use to re-roll your dice. But if I recall correctly, one of the other bonuses was actually just a flat, like, plus 10 to your dice roll. Which effectively here would be like, you already have 1 success by default before you roll. That could be another option just to consider for this kind of pool of manipulation, where as opposed to putting up to risk, I'm going to use my point before the roll, I want to have a +1.
So that is actually something that's already built into the soul boost. It's just nobody ever uses it.
Explain, I may have missed it.
Literally, that's been something that's been part of Soul Boost forever, is that people could, instead of re-rolling a 1, just use it to add a +1 success. A
They can just
guaranteed
negate the
success.
1.
No, it's they can choose to just add a success to the roll.
Yeah, but everybody likes the click clacks.
Yes.
I didn't
That
know
is-
it added. I didn't
I
know it
didn't
added.
like-
Sorry.
Oh wait,
I-
no, it wasn't a guaranteed success. It was to add an extra die. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I thought it was. I thought. I was just about to say. I didn't think he gave a guaranteed success. I thought it was an extra dice.
I thought you could negate 1 just flat, but apparently I was wrong too.
Whoops.
Everybody likes their click clacks though.
Yes.
This is true.
I could give you $1, or you could roll for $1 and possibly get more. Let's roll. I'm not wrong. Psychology is interesting, man.
Hey, Zolette.
Alright, let me just switch on over to desktop and I will get my thought.
Alright, so...
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Welcome back.
So it sounds like everybody's good with the body and mind dice being added to the new boost system, or adjusted boost system.
Yeah.
The-
Pretty much my kind of my passing thoughts are first of all, why is willpower and vigor not being considered for this?
Because they have their own setup for stuff. They've got you've got the willpower to re-roll and the vigor to adjust the difficulty.
yeah, the vigor push.
It's
Well,
also the
bigger
case the
overcharge, but
initial
yeah.
concern was the primary attributes balancing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the entire thing that Talgerius was talking about. I presume if he was concerned about the balancing of vigor and willpower as well, he would have mentioned those, but it was entirely based on the primaries.
Because pretty much like I have no major opposition to these changes because I think it's a step in the right direction in terms of making sure not just one single stat is overpowering. And yeah, I think combining the 3 primary attributes as to what forms that pool is good. And I think it's just a good core system there. Like we can kind of like look to see how, the body dice, the mind dice work in comparison to the soul dice, and if maybe we, either add 1 or drop 1, we work it. I think the framework's there. part of my passing thought, which is I don't think it would be a good discussion for today, was effectively if we, potentially stole a little bit from like D&D there in terms of having like the proficiency kind of modifier, that could be an alternative for the pool, but that doesn't change the framework of the system. So I'm pretty happy with how things are right now.
All right. Go ahead and note this down for me, Raharu.
Yes.
So we are
you want-
changing soul. What's up?
Oh, I was gonna say, Rahara, do you want me to just send you the list?
Sure.
Yeah, just leave
Here you go.
off the last line then.
Yep, already did. I made sure to re-add souls, that way it's properly in the list.
Please make sure you include that you can only use 1 boost per roll. Make sure you include that in the notes.
Yeah, I can see people want to like, oh, let me just add all these at once.
There you go, Rahara.
Got it.
I had to write it down so that way I understood it.
Mhm.
Basically, copy and paste it and edit it so that way I was on the right page and brain work.
Alright, so another thing that I wanted to propose is that I know we've had some people that are not too fond of the amount of dice that they may have to roll and the unreliability of skills as such. My idea for a proposal there is being able to trade an amount of dice for a guaranteed success. I definitely... I will say that I would want it to be less efficient for, the math side of things to have them able to do this. So, like, probability and all that stuff. Like, if we go, like, 4 dice, you can just turn them into a success. I don't know the exact number on that. That would probably be something that I'd leave to either you, Era, or Tao to figure out the math on what would be best there. But
I would just ask him what his probability per die is, again.
Yeah. But is this in general a system that you guys think we should go ahead and add?
I mean,
need to know.
Oh, go ahead, Derek.
I lean to no because, in theory, we would be rolling, about 20 dice or so. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more ways to increase that amount, but I feel like most characters, when they're entering like the end of that mid to late game, would be rolling like roughly around 20 dice. Which, under that like rough number, if you math it out, would be like 5 successes.
It depends on how we split it. I was
Yeah.
going to put it just off the top of my head in a number without the math to back me up. I would say 5 dice.
Yeah,
Because if I
that-
recall correctly, I believe the success rate per dice is 1.333 out repeating, if I remember Tell saying that correctly. And I would need to double check that math. I don't know it off the top of my head, obviously, all the time. I got too many other numbers from work in my head. But with that...
It's 1.4 repeating. As you increase the difficulty, subtract the repeating number by 1. As you decrease the difficulty, increase the repeating number by 1.
Yeah, so that's... And that's out of 10, right? That's his factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so each time you run a dice, you have a 1.4 chance repeating of getting that. So if we multiply that by 5, oh come on, calculator, work for me. That brings it to 7.222, which is the equivalent of. That's basically a 78% or 73% chance. So you're giving up 5 dice, which is a 73% chance of getting at least one, basically, success for a success. Kind of, sort of. This is statistics. I'm bad at statistics sometimes. TLDR, 5 would be a better number.
Okay. But it's kind of a, do we want to give the opportunity? Like, this would not be anything that would require anybody to purchase anything. This would just be, hey, if you want to, you can trade 5 dice for a guaranteed success.
Okay, so an important question with this is, are we talking in combat, or are we talking just like skill checks and such?
This would be at any time, any roll.
I think 7 dice is where you hit the perfect number where you're guaranteed a success. I'll have to run it with Taldarius, make sure I'm doing this right. Because I still don't know if that was easy.
We've seen a certain Weasel's rolls. 7 is not a guarantee.
Well, mathematical presumptive guarantee. Excuse me for not for being like super specific.
Guys, give Bren a break. Come on.
Yeah, and with Nova, you know, those 7 dice are clearly going to be 14 successes.
The duality of dice.
If it makes you feel better, Rain, I think you're a completely fine statistical outlier, and you don't need to change for the rest of the group.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just glad I'm able to keep you floating above water, somewhat.
Yeah.
With that free healing.
Funny enough, with that free healing, it kind of balanced my character out.
But yeah, I think it's a concept that could be kind of nice. Because
if anything, it gives the user more options.
But okay, so the thing is though, botches are sometimes really funny.
True, that would remove botches.
It would.
Once you get to a certain level, you just don't get botches anymore.
Well, it still depends, because, I mean, yeah, you wouldn't get a botch, but, like, it's not going to be common that you're going to have a solid set of 5 dice. You're probably going to have some extra dice that you can roll, which could absolutely come up as 1s. But I do know that a lot of players are like, I'm supposed to be really good at this thing, and yet my dice just hate me, and so I keep failing.
I mean,
that's understandable.
So this is kind of a way to help mitigate that. I'm okay with not including this. This was just something that, I mean, I'm pretty sure, Seda, you were one of the ones that was like, you don't want that many dice being rolled.
Yeah, and I'm like looking at that, and I feel like I don't feel like it's the appropriate solution. Cause.
Oh, Wernie.
Hi, Wernie.
Hello.
I
guess
I'm gonna be. Go ahead.
Oh, I just got Popeyes.
Well, Wernie, we are doing Scar Dev right now, so And we've got
Alright.
relatively limited time and a lot to go over, so let's try to keep this on focus.
I'm gonna say that I kind of don't like it myself.
Here's a proposal for a alternative thing though. Is there a quantity of dice that would be acceptable to trade in for a smaller quantity of dice that has a higher success rate?
So by lower difficulty instead of auto successes.
Yeah.
I could be okay with that, but yeah, Seda. I don't want to seem like I'm throwing you under the bus, but that was mostly like the whole reason I'm proposing this is because you were bringing up concerns over too many dice. So you say that this isn't the solution for it. So what do you think of that option or something else in mind?
I mean, compared to those two, I like your option more. But I don't have an alternative to provide off the top of my head, because I feel like any solution that I would propose might be more fundamentally changing how we interpret, the dice and the stats and stuff. Because actually, I was just, while we were chatting, just took my character sheet and was like, okay, well, hey, what is the maximum evasion that I could give a character? And I think without any kind of feats and attributes, that's about 10 or 11. Actually, I have a specialty for evasion, so it'd be about 10. So doing a dice trading where, at most you probably were reasonably giving yourself 4 or 5 successes, useless system to have in combat. Might be useful for a system where we prevent, as I said, potentially prevent a botch, but I don't think the system of trading in dice is one that kind of effectively combats at least the issue that I'm encountering, where you're rolling a dozen plus dice and having to manually count each one. A system that I was being made aware of from Tiberian in the Shadowrun system is that you have a giant pool of dice you throw, but your successes are actually capped. Where, let's just say, hypothetically, my mind stat is capped at 6. As soon as I get 6 successes, okay, cool, I pass it. Or that's the most I can do. So I stop counting at a certain point. I don't think that's the right system for Scar, but that's one of the alternatives that's been put forward towards me in terms of, it's not necessarily limiting the amount of dice you're throwing, but you're stopping counting at a point. There's a point where you either can't succeed anymore, or you just win.
Definitely not something that I would want to see in a system as a storyteller myself, because there are many different variables for what would be considered you pass on something. And so having that arbitrary limit, whatever we may decide it to be, can... there can be some things that players will want to do that are so far out there that it's like, okay, I'll give you this chance, but it is going to be incredibly hard to pull off.
And then a certain EV rolls it high.
Yeah, I personally need to actually read the rule book for Shadowrun a bit more to kind of make sure I understand the system as opposed to it being explained to me, and to see if it is something that could potentially fit into Scar. Because I agree, there's no reason to say, well, hey, this is going to be a difficulty 5 check, but you are capped at 4. You are never succeed. Or just saying, well, hey, every difficulty check must be 3 or 4 just so someone can succeed. I know that, at least to my understanding for that, the limit of successes is something that you can raise. But it just kind of put a cap on you just going hey, you just got 20 points on your roll. Congratulations. You're gonna say something, Rajan?
So, it. This is kind of, I'm also torn on this because this is something that I was kind of sort of like, we were talking about this, Seda. So I kind of have similar concerns. Mostly my concerns is like there's a lot of options with every single dice roll that could be made, because not only is it counting, but then you have the decision of the boost dice, and then you have the decision of if you want to willpower or vigor, and then sometimes we're filibustering for the cards to get played on the stream games. And one of the things that really stood out to me once I talked about it more and thought about it more is that unfortunately with Starlight and some of the other games, there just isn't that much rolling. And I think, ironically, more skill checks would make this feel better, because you would get better at the counting process, but also you would use up your resources and wouldn't have to make those decisions with subsequent rolls anymore. But as a potential side note, I kind of think this might entirely just be on fantasy grounds, because if you're rolling these dice physically, assuming you have all of the dice you need, it's a little bit easier to count because you can physically move your dice around and sort them as you want to. Because you can just pull off all of your dead dice, and that makes it easier to count. And on fantasy grounds, there's unless it just I've been trying to do research. I haven't found a way to like sort your dice rolls by number. I haven't found a way to like at least color your dice rolls. Like, it would help so much if at the baseline 6 through 10 were in green color font.
So I do want to say that when we are considering these things, cards absolutely should not be a factor at all. Most people that play this are not going to have filibustering for cards. So while we've got those in our games,
I know, I'm just saying,
that
like,
needs to just not be discussed.
When I had the original concerns, when I had the original concerns, that's something that I was like, that was on my mind. But in a group, like, for example, Wild Traditions does a lot of rolling, and that helps a lot. Like, you can see it in Wild Traditions. They're much more experienced at doing their rolls. They are much more used to the larger dice pools. Whereas, Starlight just doesn't roll that much.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on to
I'm
that.
sorry if I'm throwing your game under the bus, Seda, but...
Hey, look, I'm a ground type. I'm used to being kicked around in the mud.
Oh,
Don't you just sleep in the mud? That's different than getting kicked in it.
I mean, I like the mud.
That's your own problem.
Hello there, Diesel Man. Thanks for the follow.
But actually jumping back to a point that Zim was making that I think is also very fair. I had been previously been raising, as I dubbed it, automation, helpers with or automation issues with the system, but probably better defined as like automation helpers, as you were describing, Rajan. But I think in terms of the core system, I kind of agree with what a point Zim was making a while back before, where we should kind of be considering that people would be playing this physically tabletop where, yeah, dice colors or, success automatic counts would be great, but there are going to be people that might be playing this physically, and that's where my perspective is. I totally agree. I would love just to have, like, either the dice successes or stuff be colored coded or automatically counted for me. Would do a huge help with streamlining things, but I think in the broader discussion of how, is the amount of dice concerned? How do we address it? Looking at from just a pure physical tabletop perspective might be more prudent for figuring out what the best solution is.
And I'm gonna be honest, as somebody that's played Exalted, I bought a bag of 100 D10s off of Amazon for $20 and split it with the group, and that's what we used.
Oh goodness!
And it was And it was so satisfying when we got to high level and we were just dumping fistfuls of dice into a box and picking out all the ones that weren't a success or a failure.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, so it can be difficult to do the physical dice rolling compared to digital, but there is a huge benefit that you can physically sort the dice, and that's a big thing that you can't do in Fantasy Grounds right now. Fantasy
Which
Grounds,
is-
it
Okay.
gives you the list, and you have to deal with the list as is.
But I want to put aside all discussions about automation, about fantasy
Very fair,
grounds, physical dice, whatever, because those don't matter to the system. How you are playing the game, you know, whether you're using fantasy grounds or tabletop sim or physical dice, that does not matter to the system at all. Yes, those automation features, I agree, would be great. But that doesn't address whether this is a problem for this. That's not a problem for the system to determine.
Yep, and that's where I know we've had this discussion on and off a little bit. That's a portion where I want to put together a feedback form, and I am slowly starting to put it together in terms of gauging the wider player base, because we're having this is probably the largest voice call we've had on the topic here, but we've for the most part had 2 to 3 conversation here, 2 to 3 conversation here. I definitely want to gauge every single player in the system, people who are watching, people who have a passing interest in the system, to kind of gauge because I feel like the amount of dice might be a problem, but I might be an anomaly. I fully concede that I might be an anomaly on that.
I personally love more dice. I like having lots of dice.
So do most of my players.
And I need more dice.
you need better luck. Here's what I'm going to say for now, just to kind of finalize the situation. I say we don't make any of those changes. If we were going to institute something like that, I'd really want to sit down with Tal and do math crunching on both options first, lowering DC and or buying successes, just to see what kind of penalty we'd be looking at making the players eat.
Yeah,
because
and I can see, and I agree on that. I feel like this is just a particular topic we need to have a lot more information on to determine if it even is a problem to begin with. Because I have reservations. I also agree with Ryzen that it might just be I need to roll more, and that just means I need to have more skill checks in Starlight for that, to kind of get a handle on that. I think like any solution that I might put forward on that might be more drastically changing the dice system overall, and I don't want to do that without more data.
Well, I can say that so far, like Merle and Geemond are both players in games. Geemond's a player in 2 of the games. Merle's in 1. Both of them are like more dice.
Viv likes more dice. I think Var, you like more dice too, don't you?
Of course.
I would love to sit there and roll physical dice again, because rolling 20 d10s into a box was kind of fun.
Actually, a side thing, Era, we absolutely need to try to do more Scar stuff in Tabletop Simulator.
Please do. I'd love to hear like the experience with that.
I don't want to transition Twilight into a Scar system yet, though.
Yeah, I understand.
I put all that work into customizing Pathfinder.
Actually, hear me out.
What?
We could do a world of it.
I will consider doing an Olaren transition to Scar.
Oh. No, I was talking about just a world visit.
I mean, I could. I'd have to figure out the transversions, though. Did I just say transversions instead of...
Yes, you did.
Cat one out.
You're a deity. You can make up words. It's okay.
So I don't know.
But
overall, I think we should just leave it as is for now.
I agree for now. We need to kind of just have a bit more I guess like playing with it, with that potential topic in the back of my mind. I know I raised the possibility of what if we did a short shot that had like in the range of like characters having like 30 attributes, where we are near that higher end of the power level to see like, well, hey, if we take the systems to their more realistic max, how do they feel when we're rolling 20 plus dice?
I can tell you from experience now, because Verdant was near that max. He was getting close. I was rolling around 18 dice. So, but that's also me liking rolling the clickety clacks. I only own like 40 sets of dice, so.
But also in the interest of time, with the two kind of solutions there, the trading dice for successes, I think just doesn't feel good enough to justify, and trading a certain amount of dice for dice that have higher probabilities, that's splitting your dice pool into effectively two different sets, and I think that just is overcomplicating it, and I think is actually exaggerating the problem, because at least for me, I like the idea where, hey, if I roll a 7 or above, it's a success. My dice roll can manipulate that a little bit, depending upon the circumstances. I think rolling two sets of dice where it's like, okay, well, it's 7s are successes on this one's, but it's 4s on that one, and that, for me as a player, that just feels like it's making it even more complicated than it already is, where I'd rather just roll the one set of dice with the one number I'm looking for.
So we're decided on that for now, I guess?
Yes.
Cool. I'm going to be right back. I need beverage.
Okay.
Continue to talk, I can hear.
Okay. Then the next, that doesn't need notes, by the way, Raharu.
Okay.
So, Raharu, I didn't hear your opinion on, do you like more dice?
Yes.
Okay.
And you already heard my opinion about that.
Yes.
Yeah. My only problem with more dice is the fact that we need to count more until we can get something that counts successes. But yeah, I like more dice.
Yeah, but
I mean,
that is something that is completely outside the system itself.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have no control over this, because even if we were to come up with some program for people to use, they may not have access to that program, or they may be using Tabletop Sim as opposed to Fantasy Grounds or Foundry or whatever they may be using, and that's completely outside of what we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, a part of my passing thoughts that like doesn't really necessarily address my main concern, but I think can be a good additive onto that, is just the idea of having, either tied to amount of attributes or tied to the amount of like skill points you have or something, but having a baseline bonus you eventually apply. Like a starting character wouldn't get a bonus, but if you're hitting like, I don't know, 12 or 15 attributes, you'd start getting like one success to some of your checks, where you kind of have like that little bit of a baseline where you're more likely as an experienced character to succeed on something or crit something to make you feel even more powerful, as opposed to, yeah, I've just rolled 30 dice and I'm still rolling just one because of just how the math works out.
I will say we already have a skill or a feat for that. Reliable skill turns one die of the relevant skill check. It's supposed to be into a success. It is for outside of combat, but there is a feat that lets you just have guaranteed success in trading for dice.
Let me go look at that feat there.
It's line number 91 on the feat's proposal.
Oh, it's on the feat's proposal. Okay, that's why I didn't see it.
I think that particular problem you're talking on is more of a storyteller thing. Because even in 5th edition, that can happen. Like, you can get up to plus 20s, plus 30s, and then you roll a 1, and then up to the storyteller, maybe it's just going to be a failure. Like,
oh yeah, like, I mean, like, I know with, like, 5e, they have their... It's basically the proficiency plus, like... like skill bonus or something like that. So you have the, I think like if you, or no, it's your stat bonus. So like, you know, if you have like 20 dexterity, you have a +5, and then like as you level up, you start getting that proficiency bonus. I'm kind of leaning more towards the idea of just having like something like that proficiency bonus in there. That, you know, might not necessarily say, like, you can still botch, but might not botch as often as you get to the higher levels. Let me just see line 91 very quickly. Reliable skill.
I mean, mathematically, that's already true, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. But to me, I think this comes down to a storyteller thing, because I think if you are extremely skilled in something to the point that you're rolling 18 to 22 dice and you botch, then the storyteller should be making it a botch forward kind of thing where you still succeed, but something related goes wrong. Because you're so skilled, it's unlikely that you're going to fail at the thing unless you're under unique circumstances.
I mean, like, for an example, you're really skilled at athletics, and you're doing some parkour thing. You're nailing your movements, but, oh, crap. That ledge was not as solid as it seemed to be. And it just crumbled away. Which is something that already can be a case with a botch. But Raharu, do make note of make note for the storyteller section. I would like to put in a note about how botches may be environmental rather than a personal failure. So I can at least make sure that storytellers are aware that that's a thing.
The storyteller toolkit that I sent you a while ago, I talked about botch forwards too. Because I think that's a very important thing for a storyteller to do, to let the players feel like they still have proper agency even if they fail. Botch forward is just kind of a conclusion of yes and.
I left my soda in the bathroom.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I'm assuming we're just waiting for that to be written down, or are we about to pivot to a new discussion?
I'm back.
About to pivot.
Okay.
So the other thing that was brought up, well, actually continuing on with the soul being powerful. Right now, I wanted the list from Tao so we could make sure we don't miss anything, but I don't have that. So right now I have feats scaling off of your soul. I know we had some of the primeval, or the shape-shifting primeval features scale with soul a bit, but then we moved that to being the secondary attributes. So that's already taken care of. But what do we want? Like, do we have any ideas I'm not certain how to make it so feats scale. I want them to continue to be relevant, but the only idea that I've got on that is basing it off of one of the attributes, which I just picked soul. I'm absolutely okay with changing it to something else, but what do we want feats to scale off of?
As a suggestion, we could have them scale based on the thematical relevant attribute instead of all just soul.
Or it could be just primary divided by 3.
Yeah, it could be all of them.
I mean, considering that we just had this discussion earlier about the reroll system being not tied to soul but tied to all the physical attributes, I think there's a strong argument there for standardizing what we call, I mean, maybe just the physical, or sorry, not the primary total or whatever. Basically, we standardize the terminology for what that value is for combining the 3 primary attributes into one and doing like the primary attributes divided by 3. We standardize the terminology for that, and we could just base, a lot of the scaling feats off of that, or off of the secondary attributes as well, if you want to go that route as well for some of the feats. But yeah, I think standardizing that and making that be the level of scaling would be a fairly logical approach.
I would agree with that.
And also, this has the added benefit of avoiding people getting ridiculous scaling quickly by focusing a particular stat.
Yeah. So, go ahead and make note of that, Raharu. We're going to switch feats to scale off of all 3 primary attributes. Divided by 3. Let me know when you get that down.
You got it.
Cool. Alright. Next, so I think for conditions, we're going to keep that with soul. But I think moving feats away should really limit the power of one attribute versus all of them. So I think we're on a good path there.
It doesn't necessarily punish you for not investing into soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I feel like at that point it gives soul its own identity in terms of status conditions. Where you can still get your dice roll, you still can invest in your feats, but if you're a melee person, you're not being punished or being kneecapped for doing so.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to bring, that I was going to bring up earlier, but then spaced it and now just remembered it. Do we want to have boosts cost exhaustion?
No.
The main reason why I was suggesting this is just because then it would bring them in line with vigor and willpower, and they can be pretty powerful.
They can be, but counterpoint, they're per session.
Yeah.
True.
So if we were to bring it in line, we'd have to bring it into full rest and put it in the same line. So I don't think it would be wise to make those cost exhaustion.
Yeah. I would be inclined to suggest...
I think...
Going first, Rajan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this falls in line with my concern about there being so many options per dice roll. This kind of thing shouldn't be a problem if the group is doing enough dice rolls per session.
Yeah, I mean, if I know, in our current, in Starlight, we're, for the most part, doing maybe 2 or 3 dice rolls per session, because we do have probably about 2.5 hours of effective session time. So yep, this is my run roll for the campaign or for the session. Yep, I'm just gonna soul that. And with the changes that we're going to be putting forward, I think I would be getting closer to. Let me take a quick look at my character sheet here. Nope, that is not the right one.
Meanwhile, in Wild Traditions land.
The alternative idea I had was also that...
What about...
The alternative idea I had was every 2 boosts that you use per session would count as would cost an exhaustion.
I have a slight similar point. I just did the math now. With the changes that we're implementing, I would go from having 1 soul dice per session to, or 1 boost per session to 3.
Wow.
Look, I have 3 body, 5 mind, and 2 soul, so I have
Nice.
10 stats there.
I'd still be at 2.
Starlight is effectively mid-game.
Yeah.
Starlight has role played their way to mid-game. What about instead of recovering all boost dice, you just recover like 1 or 2 per session? So you're not starting every session completely fresh on them, but you have the choice to like build up over time.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, this wouldn't impact you because you don't have so many boost dice. But once you get bigger pools, you have to start making these decisions on a multiple session basis instead of a session per session.
I guess my concern with that is the complexity and people properly tracking their stuff.
Yeah. I do have 2 thoughts for this. First of all, at the moment, a boost can only apply to 1 boost per dice roll, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Hypothetically, if we're going to get to the point where characters might have 5 or 6 boosts, in their mid to late game for their rolls, is there any opposition to potentially allowing boosts to be applied multiple times to a roll? Not necessarily boosting the same dice, but if I have 2 runs, I can use 2 boosts to reroll both of those ones. But with the exception that if I go over my boost limit, which is currently 3, I take a point of exhaustion for each boost I use.
Definitely don't want to go that route.
Yeah, I feel that's once again on the too complex scale. I say we leave it as is, let it roll, and see how it feels afterwards. And
Also,
if it becomes a problem, then address it.
Also, I want to point out that you can use... when I say you can only use 1 boost, it is... If you're using Soul Boost, you can only use Soul Boost. So you can use multiple boosts. You get 3 1s, you can use all 3 of your boosts to re-roll all 3 of those 1s. However, you would not be able to then say you had 3 4s and you wanted to use your body to re-roll those. Well, you re-roll them and you get a 1. You cannot then use your soul to re-roll the 1.
Oh, definitely wouldn't. I think, agree, that would be way too complicated. I'm kind of definitely looking more from the binary re-roll perspective there, but go on, Rajan.
I do also want to point out for you, Seda, in combat, you are making multiple dice roll per round. So that would be a very easy... that would be situations where you can very easily burn through your pool of dice. But Starlight just hasn't had very much combat so far, so...
I don't think I've entered a single Wild Traditions game with any rerolls or soul or anything left. So far.
Oh yeah, we have been running dry constantly. It's wild.
Yep.
Which is the point of the system. You're supposed to burn resources. But
I think just so I'm understanding the kind of comments correctly, exceeding your boost limit, incurring exhaustion is a direction that people who don't feel fond of.
I don't think we should be putting exhaustion on the boost system at all right now.
Mm.
Because right now it is a per session resource, and our pre-session resources do not seem to call us exhaustion. So that would make you'd eat a lot of exhaustion over 2 or 3 sessions.
Mm.
And you
It
can
kinda-
only recover exhaustion relatively slowly.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
I just wanted to propose that. Sounds like that is a no. Moving to...
Oh, just very, very quickly, I would say I'm kind of open to the idea of it because I feel like it's not a lot of complexity for, what could be the I need to clutch this kind of moment. But I kind of agree. I think we've made enough systems to the boost that we kind of need to see where they are at before we start, looking at other things with it.
Alright. So, moving to the next thing that I wanted to bring up. XP per session. I know that this is going to be a very polarizing thing, or most likely, but there are some games where nothing happens at all. Like Lost in Chaos. We've been sitting there doing nothing for week after week after week after week. Like, sure, there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of, lore stuff going on, but as far as stuff that would or should actually be getting us XP, nothing. On the flip side, there are games like Wild Traditions where things are more active, but we have more examples of games where nothing happens than ones where things do happen. I'm debating the idea of removing the XP per session and instead telling storytellers, hey, go with the bonus XP, just instead of 5 XP per expected session, do 10. So that way, we're only getting XP when we actually have achieved something. And it also will help prevent that whole power ramping where...
Unearned power ramping.
Yeah, unearned power ramping. Because, like with Lost in Chaos, we've got hundreds of XP to work with. Far more than I anticipated when I put in the XP per session. Far more than what I thought we should be having with that. And I wouldn't say that the Lost in Chaos is stagnating Zolette so much as people just aren't really doing things to progress. Like, the story is still there. It's still happening. They're just not actually moving and doing anything.
The players are very invested in the conversations and the people.
Yeah, and I feel like, Ziv, you and I can probably have a very unique perspective on this because I think we've been on both kind of, I guess, like, extremes of this issue. Like, where we have been having a lot happening in the campaign, but we don't feel like we are able to be rewarded for it or grow, which I think was definitely like a driving issue where we're like, we want to kind of have at least like a flat XP per session. If you're sitting around chatting, 5 XP, but if you've encountered a combat and you've defeated some bandits, like 40, 50 XP.
I hate to say this, some GMs just haven't been giving bonus experience either.
Yeah, and I think it's a very difficult, I guess, issue to wrap around because, like, I feel like also in the same vein, in Starlight, we're definitely, I guess, like, we've gone down a gear or two a little bit in recent weeks. and we're still, attributes aside, still kind of growing at that same rate, where I could, at a rest, decide, well, hey, I just can use this session's experience to give me a point of investigation, or give me a point in this that I don't have a point into. It's free XP. 5 of these sessions, I can buy myself, most feats. And it does lead to a very weird imbalance where, like, maybe our attributes are, like, low to mid game, but I think we have, like, 400 experience to work with. To make custom moves and buy skills and stuff. It's, I think however you balance it, it's going to come down to a storyteller issue.
How about counterpoint? I know I suggested this a while ago. We create a generic experience guide that GMs use. I built an example one a while ago. I can share it.
I'd be open to seeing it, because I think the Zim, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like the tightrope that we want to try to walk is not necessarily punishing the roleplay. Like, when we have...
Nope, it's in there, actually, in my guide.
Oh.
I just linked it. I don't think I actually built the combat one. No, I did. This was a generic one. I did not include, like, actual combat experience, because that needs to be done separately, but this was a generic one I built for viewing. And if we put something like this out there, it might be a good guide for GMs to lean on if I had fully built it.
Yeah, because, like, I feel like we have a balance to kind of... Oh, sorry, you go on, Rajan.
I do have to leave for work here in a little bit, but on this subject, I'm not going to hide the fact that for me, role-playing is very tertiary in TTRPGs. I'm all about the dungeon crawling and the character building and stuff like that. I love the numbers. So I think a lot of this should just be on the storyteller to, do better job at controlling the party and, like, actually making the story have progression. But I did, on this subject, I did remember, I think it's, I guess I'll have to look up the system because I can't remember its name, but there was a system that I used a couple years ago that had this, it was more directed at relatively shorter campaigns and, like, one-shots, but it had this system where players could roll for a personal quest, and that quest would inform them of a thing that they're supposed to do for character growth. So what if we had most of the EXP handled by the storyteller, but players could also roll for a personal quest that could be on the more role-playing side, or it could be more on the combative side. Like, for example, you have a personal quest to help someone in need, and this would give the player a motivation to actually to do something progressive and interact with the storyteller and the world in a meaningful way. Yes, GibGab, I know I'm hot. Thank you. And it would give them a bit more agency over the EXP as opposed to just waiting for the storyteller to do everything? Question mark?
I don't know how I feel about that one personally.
I like the idea, but I feel like that's something that...
Again.
Shush.
You got me an idea.
Can I...
You guys making fun of my accent. Go ahead, Ren.
So, I understand the idea, but I feel like that's putting a lot of pressure on a storyteller to make all these things up as well.
At the end of the day, it is technically the storyteller/GM's responsibility to hand out experience. And I know it can be daunting. I've been GMing forever, and I forget sometimes, but...
So, I would like to note that I kind of like the concept, but don't like how it would, like... easily be implemented. And well, it
It
kind of reminds
definitely
me
needs
of,
more refinement than what I was saying. But
Yep.
yeah, but it kind of reminds me of the background and inspiration system from Baldur's Gate 3, where if you have a particular background and you perform particular actions, you get bonus XP and inspiration and all kinds of stuff.
I will say the idea of a personal quest kind of idea was something that we floated way back in the day and ultimately decided to forego.
okay.
I think it might
Okay.
be worth revisiting as an optional rule set to allow storytellers to have alternative engagement with their players. Basically, like, hey, what is your goal? Let's kind of come up with a quest line around your personal goal, so there's a bit more meaningful growth there.
I
I'm
mean, that's
all
something GMs can already do.
Yeah, I'm all for that as a concept itself, but the problem that we run into there is sometimes you have players that are just a bit more quiet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And this is the reason why we wound up deciding not to have the personal goal kind of idea. Is we'll have players that are more quiet, like Toshime, who or they just don't have an opportunity to get their story in there. And so you wind up with this imbalance of power between the players, or the storyteller then has to be like, well, guys, all of your stuff's being put on hold because we need to catch up this person.
And that would make them feel very guilty.
Could have some bad feelings there, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But it was more
So,
just
what I'm kind of approaching this with is the idea that, like, I don't necessarily have anything against a group that wants to be very roleplay focused. I just know I personally prefer the dungeon diving. But if it is something that's roleplay focused, I think there still should be a very concrete goal, concrete goal of personal growth. And that also comes down to the storyteller a little bit. But for example, the Rock Roughs, I know a while ago, all of you, you, Seda, and Abby were talking about about the evolutions and how to get to the point where you feel comfortable with letting them evolve, even though Starlight has been running for like 66 sessions or something like that.
I think
so.
Something about that.
Implementing something to help inform the role players a method of character progression that isn't just strictly combat could be something very beneficial.
Yeah, because my kind of thoughts are just around this. Like, we don't want to necessarily punish the, when we have the heart-to-heart character growth, because that is progressing the character in, less physical attributes.
I do want to butt in real quick to say, when I'm suggesting this, I am not saying that XP is only coming from combat. I am saying that XP will come from important things. Like, important heart-to-hearts absolutely can give XP. Going over the same subject 50 times, you're gonna get XP for the first one, but not the 50th.
Or a shopping session.
Or a shopping session, you're probably not gonna get much from that.
Yeah.
So how much negative EXP did I get for listening to the Dark Spiral explanation 63 times?
Negative 5 DKP.
Congratulations, you're back to level 1.
Woo!
No more DKP for you.
But yeah,
yes,
milestone
boss. So, but somewhat related to this though is as far as like bonus sources of XP and such. I know that Kai's poker roll game, they have a nature system, and the characters that perform things that are quote unquote true to their nature often get bonus XP for it.
Though we definitely moved away from that because we don't want to create a situation where, you know, Dart's being all super serious and killing all the fun, and because he's a serious nature, gets all the bonus XP, and well, now he's effectively like 3 levels ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, no.
I
So
still-
yeah, I
I-
understand why it would
I-
be avoided.
I do have a tangential question that I want to ask, kind of frame things a bit better. And gosh, I wish Taldarius was here for this. You know, roughly speaking, if we were to say the average game as intended, what would be the ratio of attribute to expertise to experience points? Because I think if we were to look
Hold
at to
on.
say, as you get that answer, I'll finish my sentence. Because I think if we were to look at it from the perspective of, hey, characters should be getting about 100 experience points per attribute, then we can look at it and be like, well, hey, are we giving too much experience by having a flat 5 XP per session, or should we scale that back, give the storyteller a bit more control, and say, well, hey, this quest was 25, this quest was 25, this was 25. Okay, you get an attribute point because you completed a major thing here, and that's another 25 there, and keep things balanced that way.
I did a bunch of this math a while ago, so it's no longer current. But before things got rehashed, between 8 and 10 attribute dots, I estimated that you should be getting at least... Trying to read my own math, hold on. Hold on.
And while you're pulling that, like, not necessarily arguing for like a hard cap on like experience points per attribute or something like that, but just kind of like as a guideline to figure out how much should we be awarding for certain things. Because
Okay.
So,
go on.
According to my math, depending on how you want to run it, you should be giving in the early game between 40 and 50 experience per attribute dot, mid game around 120 to upwards of 140, and late game around 350 to 380 if you want to build a balanced character. But this is off of old math. We've changed things since then, so I'd have to redo a lot of this math.
I definitely do not want something that could create competition. Like Gib Gab said, if we go, I think we've already moved away from this, but just, rehash, going over a lot of what's been talked about here. Putting in the idea of personal quests, that introduces competition as opposed to cooperation. Because you're going to wind up with people trying to push for their personal quest to be completed, and then sure, they get XP, but nobody else would necessarily get any from it.
I also personally believe that if forcing natures as a bonus experience thing would be terrible, because then a person's never inclined to change how their character acts.
Which I will say we do have a system in place, which none of the storytellers have been utilizing, of, hey, I really like how you played your character tonight, have a bonus boost die.
I still suggest that we make some sort of, guide.
I am A-okay with a guide.
Just something that can, at the end of every session, the GM and the players sit down with and discuss. As I said, I linked an example in the thing, something that I wrote up. That way it's not just on the GM either. Oh, who left?
Brian left, I'm assuming
Right,
for work.
Oh, he had to go to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Okay. But this way it can also be a conversation and take some of the pressure off the GM. Because I did have a GM once that instead of just giving experience would read through the list of things that could give experience, and the players would argue not for themselves but for each other and point out things that they did during the game. And I thought that really helped.
Jesus.
it really helped the party like watch others' actions and then compliment the heck out of each other constantly.
I love that in theory. In practice, the issue with those kinds of things, I'm looking at this as, like, for my streams, at the end of every session is not necessarily possible. Sometimes we run late.
Yeah, true.
A lot of games can run late. Sometimes we've got people that just have to get out of there and go off to do something else. Or they miss the session and such. Which is why I'd say it would be more...
Well, everybody got the experience.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the way it worked was that the GM would run through the list, and then he would assign experience based on the arguments at the end of the day. But even without that, some sort of guide for the GM to default on would probably help.
Definitely.
I agree. Definitely a guide to default on. And I feel like...
Candy, what's your question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I like experiencing, the session or the XP per session for a while now. I'm definitely leaning more in favor of removing it, but I think removing it would require us to, at least when it comes to, I think, feats, maybe look at how we balance the feats. Because if we are, at least on their XP cost, that is, like, because if we're, for some people that might be, or for some campaigns, removing per session might be a nerf. For some, it might, in theory, be a buff. Kind of just depends on the storyteller.
It's definitely a difficult thing. That is changing the foundation of the system itself. And
Yeah.
so
Sorry, bud.
It sounds like, in general, people... I would like to solidify, because it's going to frame where we go from here. Do we want to remove the XP per session?
Yeah, my thoughts on it are that, yeah, it would be fine to remove the XP per session, but also feed me more delicious XP, please.
I vote not on that. I don't think we should remove the XP per session.
I hate to say that we kind of need it right now with the way things have been going. I also want to tell Darius's perspective really bad.
Yeah.
Personally, I just think that going with EXP per session with sometimes the GM doing bonus EXP just keeps things simple, because any other way is just going to complicate matters.
Yeah.
If you just did the bonus XP, I could see that being a good way to do it. But there are games where people could, in theory, stagnate without basic XP.
That's kind of the problem, are the games that things are not happening in.
Yeah.
Because trying to come up with appropriate encounters, it's like, okay, you guys are at, what are we at in Lost in Chaos? 9 attributes, I think?
Is that it?
14.
So
we're at 14? Okay.
Yeah,
that's right. We're at 14. But we have... God, what was the last... Let me pull this up here.
575.
Almost 600 XP that we are able to work with.
Yeah, for context, Wild Traditions is 9 attributes, 160 XP.
Yep.
Wait, 160.
Yep.
What? Do you guys got the bonus EXP sometime?
Yeah, every once in a while.
Yeah, we've gotten a couple of bonus experience,
Ah,
but we're still
fair.
fairly weak
Yeah.
equivalently.
We can absolutely balance the system around not having XP per session. We can also balance it around keeping that. But we gotta look at this as a balancing issue as a whole, because we definitely have far more XP than we should for our current attribute level in Lost in Chaos. Because we sit there and don't do anything.
Looking outside in, I don't think that's an issue with the game, though.
It's not necessarily an issue with the game, or with, I think you mean the system.
Yeah, I don't think it's a system issue. I think, unfortunately, I think the 5 experience is a good idea, and I think in general use it's fine. I just think it's the way that those games are currently going, giving you a skewed perspective.
Yeah. I think
Unfortunately.
I think that's mostly what it is.
So
Yeah.
I think it's still a good idea, and I think in most general cases, looking outside of the groups that you're in, I think it would be a lot more solid and usable. And I think it would help GMs that are more forgetful to just be like, yeah, you always get 5 experience, so I don't have to worry about coming up with numbers every time. I just think it's a hard situation to say yes or no to. It's kind of why I want Teldarius' way in. I personally think we should leave it for now, because I don't think it's a system issue.
Yeah, I would lean towards just, we keep this discussion in mind, see how the next few sessions on each of our games plays out, because the other kind of passing thought I just had was, well, if we kind of make experience points, something that is not awarded every session, but awarded effectively at the completion of some kind of, progression milestone, either quest or, personal growth.
Which is supposed to be happening anyways.
Yeah. To varying degrees. Like, you should be getting more for that. But in some regards, that's kind of making me think about, well, what's the place of expertise? Like, if we're kind of moving towards, we remove per session XP and it's just rewarded on progression.
So, what my idea would be is it would be milestone-based XP, and basically you'd be getting like, attributes are for major story points. You beat a boss. Congrats, you got an attribute. You save a town or something, something major for the story. That would be an attribute. Merits and expertises are meant to be rewarded for your personal character's growth. This is something that's been in the system from the beginning, where, hey, you went through a lot of growth with your characters. Everybody gets so many merits. You make a cute Ren Squeak +1 attribute? Absolutely not. That is so easy.
In a week.
Yeah.
Like, look, I just got 2 attribute points just now.
That'd be a fast track to godhood.
I can become a god just by making this one laugh. Hey, Weasel, come here. I'm going to make you squeak all night long.
Look, you look. You may be a god, but be the boss.
But
Oh my god!
with those, you're going to get a lump amount of XP for alongside the attribute point, as well as alongside the merits. And then you also can, you do something smaller, you get a lump amount of XP. Say you did that fetch quest. There you go, you got some XP. It's not a major thing, but you got some XP from it.
Yeah, it definitely, like, for me, kind of re-roll around to like it should be more onus on the storyteller to kind of require certain things because like yeah, like we had the discussion with like the expertise of well whatever expertise you want to do it in, as opposed to give me a instinct or a logic or a teamwork. I mean obviously the teamwork's the addition there, but tangent. Back to the experience points. I kind of lean towards removing it, but I think it's more of a let's wait and see, let's observe it. But that's where I'm leaning right now.
I also want Tal'Daris to weigh really into that. Because if we remove it, we need the GMs to reward and be consistent about rewarding these things. And I know in a couple of the games that's not a thing. So,
Well,
it is frustrating when you go 5+ sessions and you have no means to grow the character.
you know,
to be fair, like, that is how most tabletop games work. I will say that the XP per session was something that we brought in from the White Wolf games. That's where we got the inspiration for that from. And I want to point out that they've actually been doing away with that. And I think I'm seeing the reason why with games like Lost in Chaos, like Starlight, where we can just sit there faffing about for hours on end and nothing major actually happens from it. Like,
it's just a hard situation.
It's something that your character can ramp up unexpectedly, and there's not much that the storyteller can do.
It's a rock and a hard place, basically.
Yeah. It's like you
get the GM that never gives experience no matter what you do, and then you get the players that stagnate and still progress.
And I think it also kind of raises an issue that it can be a bit, in some regards, a challenge to balance out how you design like an encounter. You have like if you have, attributes and skills, incorporate equally into everything. I could see the issue of, well, hey, I don't know where my players are putting the experience points in, so I might design something that's overly complex versus too easy.
And yeah, that, and then also, you may design this encounter, but then you have to constantly update it because, okay, they didn't get to it this week. Well, now I've got to update it to balance it for them suddenly being more powerful, and now they're even more power, and now they've got more power, and they've taken 5 weeks to get to this, and they've got new feet and new moves and stuff, but I balanced it 5 weeks ago, and woo. Exactly, Gib Gab. For the story, for the players, I understand that XP per session is really, really nice. But for a storyteller, they have so much work on them already. I believe that it is a negative for the storytellers as a whole.
Yeah, I think making it more of a suggestion might be a good idea.
We need something
for the
though.
5.
I don't know.
I think
To where it's not mandatory, but
I mean, we can absolutely put. We can. So, what I'm more proposing, I guess I should say, the XP per session will stay as an option, but it won't be part of the base rules.
I still kind of want Tal'Daris' take.
Yes, yeah. I definitely want Tal'Daris' take. But getting everybody together can be very difficult, so getting people's opinions here, I could absolutely message Taldarius later
Yeah.
and see his
Yeah.
opinion, but before I actually, I am not saying I'm going to be implementing this now.
No, and I also do see it from both ends. It's just being on both ends.
Well, right now I've got Seda leaning more towards removing it.
But also acknowledging it doesn't feel good when you go a couple
Yeah.
sessions and you have no means of growth.
Yeah.
But that's,
or begging the GM to give bonus experience when they should have.
like I like at the moment lean towards removing because I feel like the arguments are stronger for it, but I also am like very close to the fence. Because I also as a player enjoy I know I can rely on that 5 experience points unless I'm told otherwise.
From a GM experience, yes, I understand the growth, but I'm also very used to my players completely destroying my plans anyways. So maybe I'm just more comfortable with the idea of they just get 5 experience, and to me that's nothing because it's like, I have to adjust on the fly constantly anyways.
Also, to be fair, with the experience per session, I mean, that is something that the GM is going to have to take track of regardless. It will be up to them to mark up or mark down encounters regardless.
I'm very on the fence about it. It's a hard one to say because on a lot of degrees I like it, and a lot of degrees I don't like it. I don't want it to be a safety crutch for the GM to just not ever think about it. At the same time, it's nice that the players have that. So
when you're saying a safety crutch, for the storyteller to just never give anything out?
not for a GM to never give anything out, but something that is reliably there that all the players can expect and always have. This was just a boring session. The 5 experience is all you get. It's a no thought hand wave. It's a weird situation. I'm on the fence about it. Because I both like it and I both don't like it. If that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't know how to put that into words.
I get it. I understand. So I will talk with Tal about it, and we'll probably go from there. Just because this particular month, I want to make progress on this, and if we're going to be implementing this change, it's something that we need to decide sooner rather than later. But especially this month, having everybody together is going to be a nightmare.
Well, considering most of us are going to be gone as of Thursday.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Demon, Lost in Chaos is definitely the one of the 2 games that has prompted this. Starlight is the other one. Starlight, we're finally starting to actually do things. But there's been a lot of faffing about in Starlight as well.
I can still hear.
Not as much as Lost in Chaos has had, but it's still had quite a bit of it. And it's like we are kind of doing things, but it still feels like something that should be up to the storyteller to decide, okay, yeah, you guys have done enough, here's XP. And like I was saying earlier with the White Wolf system, they've moved away from the XP per session in favor of basically what I was proposing from the start, because you look at Exalted Essential, or Exalted Essence, they're now milestone as well. Though, for them, it's basically the milestones are different XPs that you can then spend how you want. It's weird, but short story, it's not XP anymore. It's not XP per session anymore. And there's also the consideration on there as well of keeping track of where your XP is actually at. Because I will also say there have been so many times that we have been sitting here like, okay, where's our XP at? And if not for Tau, I'm pretty sure all of the games would be completely lost at this point.
You probably would have like 5 different versions of where we're at experience-wise.
Yeah. I know I myself forget to mark down each session XP and such.
I've been keeping track of data anomaly hunters EXP thus far.
Yeah, but even that, like, that one's brand new. But every single session, every single campaign so far, we have at some point been like, oh, where are we on this?
Yeah.
And it has happened multiple times per campaign.
So official stance change. I went outside and I thought about it for half a second while bringing some trash out, and I realized I used the word crotch. We need to remove it.
What?
Oh,
It's a
shit.
crutch for the
Okay.
GM to be lazy. No.
Okay, so you're officially on the remove XP per session.
Yes, the GMs need to be handing out experience. If there's always that 5 experience, they're going to have an excuse to just not give out experience ever.
Okay. Well then,
Sorry for the sudden chance change. I listened to my own thoughts and then I was like, wait a minute, I used the word crutch. I don't like crutches.
I still say to keep the 5 XP per session, honestly.
yeah. Exactly, Gip Gap. Exactly. So I'll talk with Tal. I'll also talk with Key because he is one of the other devs. So see what they think. But I guess at this point it's 1 on the fence, but leaning towards remove, and 2 for removal. And
I would say if we do go forward and remove the per session XP, I feel like actually complementing that with kind of error suggestion in terms of having a like. Actually, I change the slightly, not necessarily like a per thing kind of guideline, but hey, here's a like little table for roughly how much experience points players should be having per so many attributes. So so we don't necessarily say after 5 sessions give us XP, or we might still be on the curve. We're fine, don't worry. But if we're like 1,000 XP behind where we should be, okay, maybe can we try to bump that up a little bit?
yeah,
Having a guideline would be really, really nice.
we
It
will
would be nice.
absolutely do a guideline, yes.
Because I think it'd be very important to know, like, hey, are we at a appropriate power level or not?
Yay, curve math.
Yay!
Hey.
I really do like the idea of a guideline for that.
Yeah, and okay, so a thing to consider is the more things that are put into the system that you can spend XP on, the more XP starved everyone is going to be. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be far more easy for us as well to calculate this stuff.
Yeah.
Because then we don't have to consider, okay, so sure they completed this dungeon, that's going to be worth 20 XP. We could put that guideline down, but then there's that other fluctuating thing of, well, this group took 1 session to get through that dungeon, while this group took 10 sessions.
And I would kind of feel like there is going to be a lot of balancing near the end of this system's development, because as we start getting the systems like the rest of the primeval features installed,
The
and
magic
have
system.
magic system and have further discussions on, potentially putting like a little bit of guardrail options for some character developments, and continue adding on refining things, balancing out the experience costs and the experience kind of curve is probably the easy part. The question to be asked near the end is, once we have all the systems and subsystems that we want to have in the Scar system overall in place, what do we expect players to have? Like, do we want them to be able to go down, every single primeval feature, or just one or two? Do we want them to have maxed out skills and everything, or just a couple specialized and maybe broaden everything else? Because, yeah.
It's going to
Ideally,
be evolving.
yeah. The idea behind it, like even in the character creation section, I was saying that we would have people that would be specialized in various things. So that was kind of the plan from the beginning, is that not everybody's going to be a jack of all trades. One sec. Sorry, Rex just got home.
You're good.
XP per session, but milestone caps like 40 XP that requires ST approval to move past. I feel that would get more complicated and probably be a bad idea to go about it. Like when I
get that stuff out.
Like when I brought up this, I knew from the get-go that players are not going to be for this idea of removing it. I knew that, like I said, it was going to be a polarizing kind of thing. But I'm looking at it from both a player and storyteller point of view, and storytellers have a lot of work on them already. And that's why I'm kind of like, this is probably where we should go with this.
As a player who just started tabletoping, doing this, I don't have a lot of experience with the whole 5XP. But sometimes, even with our few sessions that we have, it feels like, oh, we got 5 XP for this. Okay. Not sure why, but okay. And for me, it just feels confused because I feel like I didn't do anything to earn this. So I kind of enjoy having a milestone or like, oh,
It's a towel. You're
oh,
good. I thought.
Oh, hey. Perfect.
hey, Tao.
You get me on my phone.
That's perfect. We needed your opinion about this. We're discussing removing the 5 XP per session. And going full... What's up? Okay. And going full storyteller controlling advancement. Because, like, there are some games where, Lost in Chaos, where we didn't do much. There's a lot of sessions where we basically just sit around and talk. There's other games where we have a lot of stuff like Wild Traditions and just balancing things and determining where things happen and occur. We're kind of just discussing the possibility of removing the passive XP. So this was something that we all wanted your opinion on in particular, Tal.
All right. Well, just to go over, because before we discuss removing anything, we have to make sure that there's a discussion about why we have it in the first place. Which, the original reasoning we did for why having it in the first place is as a reward of showing up to sessions and having sex. In terms of character advancement. And to provide, a slow trickle where even if you aren't progressing main plot, you do at least get something for doing the things, even if it's not a quest reward. So, with that in mind, if we do remove it, and I'm just going over, the things. If we do remove it, what's going to end up happening is it'll definitely put a much higher focus on everyone involved to complete quests of some sort, whether they be main quest, side quest, anything. They'll want to make it a quest. So on the plus side, this will drive all of the players to want to do quests. The downside would be sometimes it's really ambiguous what a quest should be.
I will say if we do go this route, we're going to be putting in guidelines on this, and like even if it is just talking for the session, we could still get XP if it's if the storyteller decides, yeah, this was, you guys uncovered some good information. You role-played well. Whatever the storyteller decides, they can still give XP. But, we'll put in those guidelines, though.
Okay. So, all right. In that case, the other thing is that currently we have quest rewards and EXP per session, at least theoretically balanced, to provide the amount of XP that we thought would be healthy for the game. Which, in this case, if we are going to axe the per session XP, for a lot of games, by design, that is making up around, if not more than 50% of the XP. By design. So this does mean that if we want to keep the same rate of growth that we want, that we currently have in the game, if the current rate is where we want it, then we're also going to need to advise to kick up EXP rewards by about double, or implement some other additional system, because I know right now we do have the whole, if you're doing a quest and you complete some sort of side objective, there's you're encouraged to give extra XP for that. So
that was kind of the plan, is because currently it's suggested that storytellers give 5 XP per expected session for completion of a objective. Simply changing that to 10 would cover that.
Yeah, but the other thing is that then provides a whole lot of lump sum immediate XP at back-ended on things. So instead of having a smoother progression, it's all just going to be like, dumped at the end. And I don't know if that's a positive or a negative. I just want to point that out.
Honestly, Darius, with the way that or how much experience it costs to make things right now, I think lump sums just are going to be better. Because 5 experience after the first couple of skill points, 5 experiences, especially when it comes to making moves and with the oncoming of feats and everything, 5 experience is kind of a nothing, or becoming a nothing burger anyways.
Yeah, it does mean that, like, every single session, like, let's say you're slowly building up, like, just a standard power move, you can add 1 more power to it.
Yeah, but if you're going for bigger things, it takes a while.
Yeah.
And the one thing that...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that is, an effect that would happen.
Yeah, and the thing that changed my mind and the thing that I came to a realization too is that it also encourages GM to not give out bonus experience. Because they can always rely on that 5 experience being there, so they may be less apt to sit down and consider how much experience a certain thing is worth. And just be like, oh, they're getting experience anyways. That's kind of the thing that changed my mind, unfortunately.
Which in turn, as we have seen in several campaigns, it unfortunately has meant that the storyteller hasn't been giving out attributes and merits.
So, I see your point, Tel.
Well, I'm not making any particular
not points
right now.
Those notes I see, but still, do you have any actual opinion?
Okay, let's see. Because right now there is, generally speaking, a lack of quest reward XP being given. And this is simultaneously a mix of it just not being given out and also just for a good amount of the games, there just isn't a lot of quest completion actually going on. So this might remedy the lack of quest completion, because if now it'd be, if you want to progress your characters, you have to do some kind of quest of some sort. Whether this be like, a quest for knowledge, a quest to defeat an enemy, yada yada yada. That do a quest. On the other hand, the 5, getting some EXP trickle generally just feels nice because it does give a constant sense of progression, which I don't want to discount. Because getting some amount of constant sense of progression is generally a good thing for player spirits. Because even if, let's say, not too much happened in a session, well, you still have a sense of progression because your character, you at least get something.
It is something that I will very strongly encourage the storytellers to give out frequently. Not necessarily every session, but still frequent.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing that I'm considering is just how do we give them that sense of progression without it actually just being an automatic EXP reward? Was there any suggestion currently in the mix that would address something like that?
There is... go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I haven't put forth anything on that, but at the same time, it's one of those situations where, I mean, D&D and Pathfinder have been operating that way for decades just fine. Like in D&D and Pathfinder, sure, you can buy some equipment, but in general, it's like you don't get anything to really make your character stronger until your storyteller is like, yep, you level up.
Well, that's if you do milestone. There's also the
Well,
you know
I mean,
EXP
yeah,
system.
but getting XP per session in those systems doesn't. Like, you can get XP, but it doesn't really do anything for making your character stronger until you actually, level up with it.
Yeah, well, no, it does. That is true, but it does give you a sense of progression because rarely in those kinds of games will a session go by where you don't earn any EXP.
It does happen though.
It well, I'm saying
Infrequently, but it does.
in an EXP Pathfinder or D&D game, not milestone.
Yes, in a Pathfinder and D&D episode, it's actually not uncommon to have experience-less sessions.
Okay, well, not with the groups that I generally play in then.
Yeah, it depends on the group. I've had groups that get more experience and groups that don't. It's usually GM focused. It depends on how the GM wants to, run the game. Because I generally do milestone, but technically, currently I'm running Twilight on Saturdays, and that one is an EXP focused game. And I don't think I hand out experience or scales or what have you every session. Do I, Vary?
Well, okay, so we do get like EXP on most like times we like kill some various monster or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there have been sessions where we've just not gotten XP. Especially like ones where we're just hanging out in Twilight. Like most of the time we don't get XP there.
Yeah, because you guys are just kind of living general life.
Yeah.
So I don't really reward anything for just existing.
Though we do get the passive scales from like just doing our day jobs, but
Yeah, but that's like
that's
so
usually
minuscule.
very small.
That's like pennies in comparison.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, well, again, my point is just how do we potentially like give a sense of general progression without it actually like just being entirely supplemental.
I think we're okay without it, honestly. As
All right,
long
I'm
as the
just slightly-
storytellers are encouraged to give stuff out, like, at least every 2 to 3 sessions, and they stick to that. Or maybe a little bit longer, but either way, as long as they're giving it out frequently, I think it'll be fine.
Okay, well, because the thing is that this will also be a very hard cut sort of thing because right now everyone is pretty used to the 5 XP a session and that being the main form of progression while quest completion is what you do to supplement and really fill out that sense of progression. And if we cut that entirely, I was just trying to consider, okay, well now people are going to go from that to it just being,
Which is where I'm leaning. My core stance that we were kind of talking about before you joined was lean towards removing it, but just keep it in the back of our mind right now to see how it feels. And maybe have a broader discussion with like the players and feel like how they feel.
We could do like a survey about it or something.
we got like a survey I think out soon.
Yeah, and with more planned. What might just be the best thing to do is instead of just rug pulling the entire thing at once right now, because I'm not against the idea. I just want to be cautious about certain other effects that it might have. So how about at least for some of the games, especially the newer ones, we try and push for the it swapping to the quest completion ones, so that way we can get a sense for how that actually works and feels in terms of
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. So newer ones as in Wild Traditions and the Thursday night Digimon game, correct?
Yeah, because I know Zerta doesn't generally like EXP trickle anyways and would prefer to do Milestone anyway. So if we tell him, hey, do Milestone, he'll be like probably happy about that.
And I'm okay with doing that on Wild Traditions front as well.
How you
But-
feeling, Vari?
Feed me XP, please. Is my only response.
I know the feeling.
I've got so many things to spend XP on.
Yeah, well, that's by design.
Yep.
I have recommended a lot of these costs to specifically give everyone the constant sense of, I just need a little bit more XP.
Oh, so you're playing on the gambling policy, and people got it. You're making addicts out of people.
Would you say that I've been unsuccessful at this in any way?
I never said that. You're just turning a
So-
bunch of people into addicts.
Tal, I just want to bring up Raijin in chat is saying, I get where Tal is coming from, but there are already so many intrinsic and extrinsic reward systems to a tabletop, and I kind of suspect that having more things to provide progression for just showing up is kind of incidentally reinforcing players to stick around longer than they're actually having fun. And yeah, I can agree on that. Like, I think it just, and yeah, Kenku, The Last Hope is one in particular where I don't want to call out somebody in particular, but Kerr is one of the storytellers that just hasn't been giving anything that he's supposed to be giving.
Been trying to prod him for it, and he's just like, all right, I'll think about it and get back to you. And then, like, I ask the next week, and he's just like, oh, yeah, I'll think about that.
Yeah, it's.
Oh God.
It was a thing in DRS too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And it's like, part of the problem is he's not giving it out anyways, and so we are, and I don't know his reason for it. Probably just simply forgetting, but if he were to be giving out rewards, we'd be more balanced, but right now we're sitting here on a whole bunch of XP, and meanwhile our attribute total is at
18.
Is it at 18 now?
Yeah, it's at 18. And
Oh
if you're
yeah, because he
evolved
gave
like,
the...
like half of us are. If you're evolved like half of us are, it's 20.
Yeah, but it is a storyteller issue because he just wasn't giving those out until suddenly we got a whole bunch of them at the end of season 1.
Yeah, I was trying to like remind him that attributes, like he had to give those out, milestone existed, and then he started giving those out, and then we got a bunch of lump sum at the year time skip.
I honestly agree with Raijin there. If a group sucks, we shouldn't have systems that mask that too hard. A bad group should break apart instead of holding each other hostage. I will say, yeah.
I'm gonna say that is something that shouldn't be dependent on the system to try and encourage.
Well,
That should be something that is. So, I view that as being completely outside the realm of our responsibility or even our consideration when making a tabletop.
Yeah.
Because that is like, if that is happening, that is a communication issue, and nothing that we do will ever fix communication issues like that. So like it is a good sentiment, and I definitely agree with like the base sentiment. The problem is just that when it comes to tabletops, as a community, we should encourage that if you are not having fun and like, all of that you leave the game or the game just breaks apart. As a tabletop developer, is where I question if that is our role.
No, but part of the idea of having a sense of progression each session is something that it's one of those masks. It's like, oh yeah, I'm growing every session, and like Merle and Kenku have just kind of sat here and realized the last hope has gotten jack shit.
Yeah.
Aw.
Well, that's part of the reason that like I keep going. Like, hey, Kerr, do we get any rewards for that? But yeah, no. So it's just a thing where it's like, I definitely agree that like sometimes groups should just break apart, and but the thing is that again, I just really question like our role in that as tabletop developers in terms of, because at the end of the day, we are trying to make a fun system. And if we are worried about our system supplementing the fun in certain ways that might cause an otherwise like dysfunctional group to stay together longer, that's just where I'm like,
I think I think the point here is being missed. Probably better just move on from this subject then.
okay.
Kind of just keep it in the back of mind, observe, reconvene a little later, and just see how we feel.
Yeah, so yeah, the thing I'm just gonna push for us moving some of the newer games that the EXP trickle hasn't been like entrenched in towards the milestone system, because I think that's the best way to test it out without potentially rug pulling someone or like a group, or making a bunch of massive sweeping changes that are going to get people really fucking confused. In terms
I think
of EXP progression.
I think that also another important thing is to putting together the guideline thing that Era talked about before we make any huge changes would definitely be a good thing.
I think we're going to be fine with Zim. I don't know how Zerd is going to handle it, but I can take that little beginner example guide and start ripping it apart again. I'll have to redo a lot of math to rebuild the curves from what I have.
But yeah, no, I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I do specifically like encourage a cost of things where it just gives a sense of I just always need just a little bit more.
I hate it so much.
What? Okay, look, the reason behind it was originally to try and go like, hey, here's all of these fun things that you can do without letting people like always have everything.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like, it's a thing where like, when you're trying to design something, you're like, okay, look, how do I make this so that way,
People want to come
it
back.
always feels like there's room to grow.
I will say, like, for myself, I have felt disincentivized to give you guys XP with Wild Traditions because of the passive XP.
As I said, when I came to the revelation, I used the word crutch. And I do occasionally walk with a cane in real life, so I have bad knees. Yay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't like it when we give somebody. Yeah, that's my concern, is that it gives a GM an excuse to be lazy and just not think about it because they always get 5 experience. It's fine. They always get 5 experience. It's fine.
Well,
And just shove it off in the mind.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
not what
in-
I'm getting at with my side of things.
Yeah, he was saying he was lessening the rewards
Because
Freckle.
Like we're at 8 sessions. You guys have already gotten 40 XP from that, and it's like I don't want to give you more XP because I want to keep the power level in check so I can do my best to balance things. And so I personally have not, like, I gave out the XP, but like I didn't want to give out bonus XP for that battle against the Echoes because you've already got a whole bunch of XP extra, and it's like, do I really want to disrupt the balance here?
I will say over the course of things, we have earned exactly 100 bonus XP. I will say, like, XP past the starting XP of 60. So, of that, 40 of that is from the session trickle, and 60 of that is from bonus reward. Either it being quest reward or the rare candy thing. Which
thanks people that redeem that. Thank you.
Yeah, but so I will say that, currently speaking, in terms of our intended balance, we could go 2 more sessions with no bonus XP, or no, sorry, 4 more sessions with no bonus XP, and then even out. But that's just me, math braining. But so again, the thing that we were going to try and do is swap those 2 games to the milestone only in order to see how that plays out and how that feels.
And yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay, I think we can call that discussion done then. I think we've made a decision.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I keep forgetting that we have to add 5 more EXP on each session.
Yeah, well, that's why I keep a tracker. There's like a pinned comment that's
Which I do appreciate.
See, when I realized somebody else was tracking it, I stopped.
That is another point that I brought up for why we should get rid of the XP per session, is because we have had so many times in every campaign where we have had 4 or 5 different, well, maybe not 4 or 5, but 2 or 3 different opinions about where our XP total is.
Yeah,
people are struggling to keep track of that.
Although people are going to have it wrong anyway in terms of even if it's a milestone, because people will just forget to write it down or something and then forget about it next week.
Sure. But at least then the storyteller is on top of it. Or should be.
Yeah.
But yeah. Decision made.
Which day did we lose to the ether? Because I brought up chat and I just see a comment saying Lick still lost an entire day to the ether, and I'm curious which one. It was skipped like day 7 or something. Because I know we didn't skip day 6.
Oh, apparently, we were on a discussion on whether we were on day 11 or 12, but Raijin went in and, having watched through everything, we were actually on day 13.
I remember like a while ago we decided that was day 12. But yeah. Because I could have sworn that was day 12, because Vane killed on day 9. Day 10 we found out about the whole culty situation, along with the whole like Groudon incident. I forget what happened on day 11. I think day 11 is when Chomper made the wish. I thought it was the day after that it activated. So I thought we were on day 12, but whatever. At least in terms of like, the main campaign. I didn't actually watch the side. So I don't know if the side progressed one more day and then got like, timeline snapped back to match with the main game or something. I don't know. Lick does effectively operate on DBZ time.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, look, the thing is that, yeah, we talk for more hours than there are in a fucking day, so.
Yeah, you guys do. You guys really do.
We said
Yeah,
DBZ
so,
time.
Yeah.
So instead of talking being a free action, there it's a negative action.
Negative action.
Every time somebody says a word, time regresses a second.
Lost in Chaos and now they're talking is the main reason why I brought up the whole let's get rid of the XP per session.
What did I return to?
To be fair, it's very convoluted, but I also think that Lick has one of the stronger known main plots right now. So there is at least that.
Okay.
Hey, are you gainsaying my statement at all?
I'll be honest, ADHD caught me and I did not catch what you said.
Oh, I said, at least with all the talking, Lick has probably one of the best, strongest known main plots going on of all the games.
I disagree. I have no idea where everything is going with Lost in Chaos right now. There have been so many things. Like, we definitely have like 5 or 7 different plot points. Okay, but what is the main thing? I don't know.
Do you count? Okay, the main thing is obviously that we're on timeline loop 71,528. And it will all be erased if we fail.
So, dev work.
Yeah, let's move back to that.
Okay.
Well, if you don't need me tapped for anything in particular anymore, I'm gonna go back to being horizontal.
Go sleep.
Alright, thank you for your input. I guess right now our plan is switch Wild Traditions and DAH to the Milestone. We'll come up with guidelines and then probably transition the rest over later. I know somebody brought up the idea of doing surveys on this for the players, but the problem
I don't think it matters much as the problem.
I mean, to be honest, there's a lot more pressing things that I'd like to survey the players on. I am actually thinking about, just from this discussion, about maybe just doing a storyteller specific form.
Oh,
that could be good.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
Because I feel like some of the questions that we want to ask, like storytellers, in terms of like the experience stuff, are more storyteller questions. But I think there is definitely, continuing on from our previous discussion on that, it was like I think there's some like broader system questions that are definitely more geared towards the players in terms of, hey, is this system actually fun to play with?
So, what I was going to say about a survey on that particular point is, I don't think that we can rely on that. Because there's a lot of... Most of the players, as we've already seen, their first go-to is don't remove it. But as I saw here in the chat, several people have come around as we've been discussing why we want to remove it to, okay, maybe we should. Or that they'd be willing to try it out and stuff like that. But the first response from every player was, don't.
I'm still saying don't.
Yeah, it's because the perception is we're taking something away from you if we remove it. Not when the goal isn't necessarily to take it away, it's to move it and encourage it to come in a different method.
Exactly.
And actually rewards, but that's tit for tat, so we can close that subject.
Yep. On to the next topic.
Next topic. It was brought up about classes, as well as as kind of a side point to that of the idea of having multiple, basically, progression paths that people could go down. I'm absolutely all for some pre-designed progression paths that you can choose to go down. I am 100% against the idea of classes, at least in the traditional D&D and Pathfinder sense, where, well, you have to be this class in order to get this particular class feature.
Go ahead, Ren.
I 100% agree with that. I do not like where I have to choose a class to use this feat or anything like that.
I thought the primeval whatchamacallit, since my brain doesn't want to work anymore tonight, apparently, and I have forgotten how to speak English yet again, because English is a terrible language. I thought the primevals were going to be the more or less stand-in for quote-unquote classes, kind of, sort of, or that concept.
Yeah. Kinda, yeah.
Because I thought I don't think the system facilitates classes, I'm sorry.
I would say, like, the guidelines to have a focus on, like, you don't go a particular route, but don't know how to get good with a certain quote-unquote class would be helpful.
I would want to finish the system, and then we can make example, or because me, Taldarius, even Vari here can dig through the rules for days and build characters. So building a bunch of character paths won't be hard once everything's said and done. Yes. It'd be better to do when we have a fuller system.
Got it.
I'm not against the idea, I'm just saying...
Like, put in postpone then, right now.
Yeah. That's an end of the game thing, personally speaking.
Hi,
Raijin.
Welcome back, Raijin. I'm just bringing this up because it was brought up in Scar Dev, so it's a plot point to talk about. Is there more that you want to add on that, Seda? Because I know you and Raijin were, both of you, either of you, were the primary ones that were giving that idea out there, but... Like, am I missing the point of what you guys were wanting there, or...
Well, I'm guessing Sada's a little busy right now, but from my recollection of the conversation we originally had, the primary concern was when you're making a character, the amount of time it takes to finish the character sheet for the standard player, not necessarily the experienced one, and a little bit of providing a bit more of a constructive identity to the player. For me, when I make this recommendation, I don't make it at all with the supposition that there are things locked behind classes. I make it entirely with the idea of it being an optional guide rail to help newer players guide their decisions within a more constructive framework, as opposed to necessarily being a thing that you have to choose or you will miss out on certain features otherwise. Theta was a lot more focused on the idea of classes themselves, but I pretty much immediately latched on to just the basic idea of archetypes in general.
Yeah, building that stuff, I think, would be better to push off until the end when we have a complete system. Though, Ren, feel free to throw in with that, because you as a new player get to be the one that put out there how valuable that is. And I know that I personally helped you build your character.
Yeah, Era helped me a lot with this, because like I'm a brand new character, never really tabletop before. And I feel like even like a very small guideline of where to put which dot to help your character build would be tremendously helpful. At least like a very start of it. Sorry.
A proposal would be to just create like a bare bones example character of each like quote unquote role.
The core archetypes, which is doable. I just worry about doing that now because the system's in flux. So we'd have to stop every 2 to 3 updates and then rebuild that, and that's a time sink.
Yeah, I will say I think hypothetically you could create very, very simple like packages. For example, like a move package for dealing damage or a move package for controlling opponents. Because the moves themselves shouldn't be rebalanced too much at this point. And if they do, then it would be pretty simple to go back and revisit the move packages as necessary, because it's isolated to specifically the move system. And this would be something that helps the new player that doesn't quite understand how to design moves yet.
Yeah, and
like the fuller idea of like complete packages is definitely a long-term thing, but in the short term, just like a very simple, straightforward example package would do a lot.
Are you muted there, mid-thought? But let me kind of actually like elaborate from like where my feelings, started gravitating towards a class-like structure. I love the freedom that the SCAR system gives us, but I think we might have a problem of too much freedom. You could have, and you could say it boils down to the player, yes, but we could have a pool of 400 XP and someone puts it all in, very particular stats, very particular moves. And despite having the same amount of XP, someone who goes down a different route on their spending can feel on a completely different power level. Could be rolling 5 less dice for what in theory would be an equivalent attack. My potential leanings for the idea is similar to kind of what Raijin's suggesting, is less so much classes, but more archetype themes. Though I lean a little bit more heavily into it in terms of the idea of creating archetype themes based around more of like the primeval features. So, you have a magic-based path archetype, a shape-shifting archetype, a more fighting archetype, etc. Not going so far down the classes, but I think with the important distinction of not locking something behind it, but just hypothetically, I select the shapeshifter as my main primeval path of sorts. But if I really like that one feature over there from the magic path, I can still buy it with XP. And the reason why I lean towards that idea is you could balance these archetypes around having a certain amount of attributes or a certain amount of primary attributes. So that way you have a clear sense of, well, hey, if I've gone down this path and I now get, 10 attributes, I can actually unlock this feature. I now know what my character can do just based off the attributes. Or, hey, I really like that. I just got to wait until I get 10 attributes before I purchase that part of that other pathway. All in the name of kind of providing a little bit more guidelines for how you can progress your character outside of just min-maxing your moves, but also, providing a little bit more equalizing factor for the power disparity between players. Because obviously you can't, micromanage and balance everything, but making sure the difference between the power levels of players isn't as large based off of, how optimal they've purchased their experience points.
So just to echo off of that a little bit, a big motivation for me is just based on my knowledge of game balance, game design, and human psychology. It's really important to, not necessarily make unique things tied to the classes that you miss out on. But what I'm saying is guardrails on until the player takes them off. Like, for example, to take from the Dark Souls game, you can technically do anything regardless of what class you start as, but that starting class informs your early decisions and gives you an immediate sense of direction to start with.
I'm definitely not against the idea of, I definitely want to put in some archetypes, some guidelines. I mean,
Of course, like Eric said, I do think this is longer term stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not against putting together a handful of starting packages, especially for new players to grab on. That doesn't bother me. I don't feel this system warrants necessarily rails for the experienced player.
And that where my other thought kind of went towards if let's just say you had 5 archetypes in the game that you wanted to kind of build and balance things around. You could also have the option in the middle where you are unaligned, and as opposed to getting, hey, you get this at your milestone, or you get this feature there, you can just say, oh, hey, I'm just going to spend it wherever. So it's why I'm very keen to, regardless of what we do, keep the experience point costs of associated abilities, just so you aren't locked behind anything. But could just be that we have, the paths. You can unlock the next path with experience points, but you don't have to spend it on that path. You can spend it elsewhere.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what the paths are going to end up being, based on the way that the whatchamacallits, the primeval features. Thank you, Brain, for actually functioning for 2 seconds tonight. I appreciate it. Based on the way that those are being built, I think that those will end up supplementing and fitting into that class section, quote unquote, for a lot of newer players and give them a guide on something that they can focus on until they're more competent at the game. So I think that's just something that's going to be more filled out as we go on. Though I do see Raijin's point where for newer players that aren't quite experienced, we might want to just throw together a handful of, here's a beginning package. Do you want to be the healer? We'll put your points here and buy these 2 moves and then slap a sticker on it and go. And then pick one of these pass and go or something. But I think the primeval thing is going to end up filling out the quote-unquote class feat, or the class, here's a path you can walk quite well as it develops. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd be very curious of how the primeval features kind of develop over time, because I feel like there might be a discussion of, hey, should we just give players that start, like, hey, you can pick one of the starting features of a primeval feature at character creation to kind of like soft push them down a path if they want to continue going down that path.
Based
that's
on early. Sorry, go ahead.
That is way too far from now kind of conversation.
Yeah, honestly, it sounds like from an earlier discussion, you won't be able to use your beginning feats to start going down that, but you will be able to use your beginning experience to start going down that path. So that part's plausibly already there. It really depends, because we gotta get the primary or the primeval features more built out, so that way we know where it's balancing and feeling is going.
Yeah. I know the ones that we have right now, I'm pretty good with them as they are. We might come up with more things to toss into them here and there, but as they stand, I'm pretty good with them not being touched again. Outside of, needing some balancing and such later, but...
I have to look at them.
Though jumping on the balancing side, I know one thing I did toss out, I forget if it was either just in private or elsewhere, but in terms of balancing the features, would there be open consideration for potentially keeping certain aspects of the primeval features locked behind attribute gates? Like, you have to have so many attributes before you can do XYZ feature.
I am okay with that. Currently, I've been building them with the idea that they are... that you can get them when you can afford the XP cost, but I am okay with putting in you need so many attributes to get this.
Bridges for another time, though.
All right.
So, something to consider, and I guess there's no easy way to approach that for now.
Just not necessarily to start an explicit discussion about it, but in a way, what Rex was suggesting regarding the potential with magic is also kind of class-based, ? I don't know if any of you read that in Scar suggestions yet, but...
Did, and actually I really liked it.
I have words on it, but I'd rather save the magic discussion for another night entirely, because it's late now.
Oh.
It's almost 11.
That was literally what he was about to go into.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. That was like my most excited topic for this topic I was most excited about for tonight.
You should have opened it up. It's 11 p.m., Zim. That's going to be an extremely long conversation because I have words.
Oh.
And a whole lot of them.
Oh.
We will be here until like 2 a.m.
Zim, I have to be up in
That's fine,
7
you don't need
hours
work.
to go to the airport.
It's fine, you can sleep on the plane.
Also, I'm assuming you guys want the things when I drive down to MFF, so I can't be dead tomorrow. I actually need my spoons to, do a bunch of running around so that way MFF can be a thing.
Spoons.
No, I just upset Zim by saying we might need to stop deving, and he was just about to touch on magic, and he was really excited about it, but the other things took too long.
Yeah.
Well, could we potentially do a fireside chat at MFS since a lot of us will be there then?
I cannot. I mean, we'll have Thursday night to sit down and talk a little bit about it. Sure.
Yes.
I'll have drinks, but I've got a lot of words. They're not bad words, but they're words.
I was about to say, are they bad ones?
I have. They're not necessarily bad, but it's a No, not going into it. It's going to take too long to explain.
I would lean towards a fireside chat because a lot of my thoughts are definitely a lot bigger, and like Zim and Raija know, part of me is like thinking more around. Why am I getting wiped?
I don't know why
No.
you're being cleaned.
Easy rock needs cleaning.
Remember to keep your noodles nice and clean.
You have to be clean if you're going to be an effective steel wire brush.
But like as Zim and Raija know, a bit of my particular interest right now is actually just kind of looking at every system, even the things we've had from day one, to figure out, are they good systems or not? Should we revise them, clean them up, remove them, that kind of thing? And I'm talking about every single solitary aspect of the system.
Okay.
Because I agree on like how you guys are balancing things, but I also want to also just look at, you know, are our attributes good? Are our expertise good? Are the skills good? Do we have too many skills, too little skills? That kind of stuff. What's fun to play?
No, and I understand that. It's just there were two notable things I read from Raijan's thing, and I was going to first clarify if I understood what I was reading right, and if I was understanding things and reading it right. My immediate response was going to be, are we making our primeval or no? So, if you want me to rip the Band-Aid off right now, if I understand it correctly, the magic system being proposed has two core features. One, the mana regenerates over time. Two, you need a vessel to put the mana into, correct?
You would be able to store some with yourself, but you can expand your mana pool by having a vessel. Yes.
Okay, but there is a limited amount of mana you have per day.
In essence, yes.
Okay, yep.
I believe we decided the standard basic mana pool would regenerate naturally, even so much as being like regenerating in combat, I believe is what you said, Zim. But the other ones, the special ones, regenerate much slower, and it's preferable to recover it through the, more explicit manner.
Yep, so This is going to have to be a longer conversation than we have time for. So it was the way I understood it. Okay. Yep. We can have a fireside talk at MFF. We have Thursday night after we get our passes, because I don't think anything's happening Thursday night.
Well, Seda, do you think you would be able to do that Thursday night?
Hugs, Master. Hugs.
I'm gonna have to have a chat with Avi because I don't know what room we're doing, and I don't know if Avi wants to have a couples dinner or not.
Extra sad Zim noises.
Hugs, Master.
Hugs, Master.
Sorry to call time.
Though, one counterpoint is, hopefully this gives Taldarius an opportunity to be involved when the conversation happens. Maybe.
50-50. I'll have my laptop. One of them.
Super duper sad Zim noises.
Yeah, and as Avi said, we're both like busy packing because we fly tomorrow, not Thursday. So
that's the same.
Yeah, I need to. My car's ready. I need to pack. I need to get the stuff for you, Zim.
I know.
And I also got to stop by the police station and drop off an application because, yay.
Yay.
And I've got to vacuum my house because somebody else is watching my cat, and my cat sheds everywhere.
Wow.
Long hair domestic.
But are we going to
Fluffy
have any
black
other
cat.
additional discussions tonight? Because if not, I will need to go finish packing.
No, I suppose we'll call it there. Well, thank you everybody for at least coming by to have this dev session. I guess we'll be done.
Are you guys gonna do a quick shout out with going to the MFF?
What was that?
Are you guys gonna do like a quick shout out of who's going to the con?
Like, how so? You mean just which one of us are going to the con? Because there's a lot of people going to the con.
Yes.
I don't know if we even know how many people around are going to the con.
Jeez.
As far as I'm aware, everybody in this call right now except for you and Vari are going.
Yeah, Vari's main con isn't MFF. He does things
Yeah,
closer to home.
FWA.
But either way,
Technically speaking, Rin, you still have a chance.
What?
The plane ticket might be a little bit expensive at this point, but you could come too.
Oh no, it's too late for me. I have to have a 2 weeks ahead of notice to my job.
Do you work Saturday and Sunday?
No.
What time do you get off on Friday?
5 p.m.
Technically, the airport is not that far away from the hotel room.
Era
Hoping you'd
being
be
bad
sleeping with-
influence.
But then I have a feeling you'd have to choose which bed you sleep in, Ren.
what do you mean?
And at least one of us bites.
He'd just be sleeping at my feet.
Of course, of course.
Nova Evan, thanks for that follow. Welcome.
It's okay, my tail literally takes up the other side of the bed, and I'm not kidding.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today for this dev session. Check out our website, zgfgaming.com. We've got links for our Discord, Telegram, Mastodon, Blue Sky, Patreon, and more. They are on the website as well as down in the description below through our link tree. Thank you to my patrons, tippers, and subscribers. It is your support that keeps this channel alive and going. I cannot do this without your guys' help and your support, so thank you. We will be switching over to doing a game here, but thank you so much for joining, everybody. I really appreciate you all. Hope to see you back here, or just stick around here, you know, because, yeah, we're not going anywhere yet. But yeah, thanks again so much for joining, and I bid you all the most fondest adieu.
Bye.
Bye.
Later everyone.